Wang Wei, about to set sail on the Han River. At Chu's border, where the three branches of the Xiang River join, when you pass Jingmen, the 9 streams flow as one. The great river rolls onward to the end of the world, as mountains on either side fade in and out of view. Towns along the banks float above the water. Waves seem to move against some far-off sky. Such a beautiful day here in Xiangyang. I wish I could stay longer to drink with Old Man Shan. So first of all, let me explain a little mistake that has happened in the videos that I've been posting. Now, I made a mistake. There was a video that I filmed that I called Han River, but that wasn't the Han River poem by Wang Wei. It was actually the Farewell to Prefect Li poem. So I've changed the name accordingly. You will probably have noticed the mistake when watching the video and seeing that the title was quite different from, the title mentioned in the recording was different from the title on the outside. So I had skipped this poem. This one, the one that I am talking about today and the one that I have just read, this is the one about to set sail on the Han River Valley. So let's make a little jump back. We were already seeing poems by Men Haoran. We have to make this little jump backwards to Wang Wei then. The poem we have just read is a typical landscape poem, but its focus is not the retired mountain retreat, the solitary mountain place where Wang Wei usually locates his poems. It feels more of a touristy type of poem, as it is describing us a river area in the south of China. The Han River is it's not one of the main rivers of China, but probably one of the main rivers of the south of China. In fact, after flowing for some big distance, it merges with the Yangtze, the great river of southern China. So this poem is going to describe the beautiful scenery surrounding the river. And it's not going to have peculiarly strong elements of the retired life or of the typical views of nature in one way. It's more of a landscape poetry in the form of sightseeing, of describing a famous landmark, more than just the nature that can be seen in the mountains. Okay then, so as usual, let's go couplet by couplet. First couplet. At Chu's border, where the 3 branches of the Xiang River join, when you pass Jingmen, the 9 streams flow as one. So the first couplet, along with the title, locates us in the region of Chu. So the region of Chu basically included the middle course of the Yangtze and most of the course of the Han River. But there were other rivers also in this area that flowed into these rivers. So there's the Xiang River, which flows into Lake Dongting, I think. And there are other small streams that merge into the Han and into the Yangtze. So the poem locates us here. It says, we're at Chu's border. The 3 branches of the Xiang River join here. I'm not sure if they join to merge into Lake Dongting or to merge into the Yangtze or to merge into the Han River. But anyway, we're at this confluence of southern rivers. And it says, when you pass Jingmen, which is a specific place, many streams flow into one. I imagine these 9 streams that flow into one are definitely the rivulets that form into the Han River, which, as I said before, will later of itself merge into the Yangtze. So this first couplet locates us geographically, and it shows us an image of different rivers flowing and merging into each other, acting as a prelude of the Han River, which is going to be the main axis of navigation in the remainder of the poem. Second couplet. The great river rolls onward to the end of the world, as mountains on either side fade in and out of view. So the great river here is supposed to be the Han. It is a bit unconventional. I'm generally used to seeing the Yangtze, or in the north, the Yellow River, the Huanghe, described as the great river. The Han is a great river in China, but not comparable to these two mammoths. But anyway, this river is flowing on. We get an image of its progression. And we have this horizontal projection. The river is flowing to the end of the world, which is basically here the ocean, the China Sea in the east, the Pacific Ocean. But we get a view of the ocean flowing and what is seen while the ocean passes. So on the banks, we can see mountains. And those mountains fade in and out of view. Why do they fade in and out of view? I imagine they fade in and out of view because the river moves, and what was a mountain seen now ceases to be a mountain seen later on. It could be perhaps a reference to mists. So perhaps if we're traveling down the river in a misty day, the mountains appear and disappear out of view almost magically. So one or both of these images could be the one that is painted in the eyes of the reader of the poem. Third couplet, which is the second parallelistic couplet. Up to now we've had nature. In the first couplet we had the geographical area and the little rivulets. In the second couplet we had the river flowing and the mountains being seen from the river. Now we will get more detailed, more specific sights. Towns along the bank float above the water. Waves seem to move against some far-off sky. So again we get two images, one of which is more in the horizontal axis and the other of which is more in the vertical axis. The horizontal image are the towns. So human presence is felt apart from the natural presence we've been describing until now. So there are towns on the banks. They seem to float on the water. Just as the mountains fade in and out of view, the towns seem to be bobbing up and down in the river. And the waves seem to move against some far-off sky. So you have a background of heaven, and the waves are moving probably up and down with respect to that sky. So actually the two images, the towns floating, the waves moving, don't actually seem to contrast vertical and horizontal. They both have a horizontal aspect, at least, in that they're both bobbing up and down, it seems, when you're traveling in the river. Although I insist that the towns would be also be seen as one moves down the road, down the river. They would be seen as, being left behind or being still in front. The conclusion. So the conclusion takes us away from the descriptive, and it summarizes the whole aesthetic experience of gazing at the Han River or of navigating down it. Such a beautiful day here in Xianjiang. I wish I could stay longer to drink with Old Man Shan. So the couplet joins with the title, and it transmits the idea that Wang Wei is not traveling down the river yet. He is perhaps about to travel, but right now he's in a town, Xiangyang, which was a moderately important town in the area, and that he is gazing at the river and thinking of the future travel. But, he hasn't moved yet. And he ends the line by saying, I wish I could stay longer to drink with Old Man Shan. So this Old Man Shan is a reference to a general from the Eastern Jin dynasty, I think. So about the 4th century of our era, perhaps a bit earlier. Maybe it was an Eastern, I'm not sure if it was an Eastern or a Western Jin figure. Anyway, a general from 300 or 400 years before Wang Wei's time, who was famous for having stayed in command at the town of Xiangyang and for having been overtly fond of wine. So why is Wang Wei referring this general with whom he would like to have stayed drinking? Yeah, he didn't drink literally with him because that general lived 300 or 400 years before Wang Wei's time. But remember that wine drinking in a lot of Chinese poems is not just meant to be wine drinking per se. Wine drinking is associated with Taoism, with disconnecting from the world, with removing the dust of worldly ambitions and pursuits, with having that sort of a mind frame. In fact, this old man Shan, I think, was the son of one of the 7 sages of the Bamboo Grove, who were famous Taoist writers and famous also for their renunciation of the world and drinking alcohol. So this connection implies, I wish I could stay here remembering this general who didn't have too many worldly ambitions and who enjoyed drinking wine. So I would enjoy also drinking wine with someone like him, or drinking wine alone and reminiscing him and his detached attitude from worldly desires. So it's an adequate quote because of the location. The fact that Wang Wei is in Shenyang would naturally evocate in his poems a figure who lived there and who was in some aspects like him, at least in this detachment from the world sort of element. So altogether, a quaint little poem describing an area, and quite nice.